Hey folks, Paul from Easy Acres Off-Grid Homestead back with another seasonal update letting you know what I've been up to this spring of 2025. After that punishing winter that Grace and I went through together, we're finally into spring, personally my favorite season, and it's kind of short here in the high desert, and we took advantage of it. In addition to taking in the beauty of nature around us, we planned and created several new garden beds, and I employed some indigenous-inspired permaculture concepts, and I'm really excited to share with y'all some of the water-saving measures that we employ to make the most out of our meager land and challenging climate. I'm really excited to share with you some of the progress I've made when it comes to preserving and storing fish without refrigeration. It's giving us a great source, a really reliable source of animal protein. But most of all, I'm really excited to share with y'all a bit of what we do, low cash style, out here at Easy Acres Off-Grid Homestead. Grace and I spent a few days prepping some of the wildflower beds in the space in front of our quail aviary. The soil's been really heavily amended with compost, woody debris, biochar, and even some commercial bed filler. I want to grow some taller native western blue flax as a shade for my quail, and it's a really good pioneer species to help establish this bed. The soil in my area is very rocky, very silty, with very little organic matter to it, but I do notice that my garden beds improve and get better each year as the soil biota, the life in the soil, improves. One of my favorite things about living off-grid out here are the little lizards that wake up and start to come around during the first sunny days of spring. I built my wildflower garden with the lizards in mind, giving them plenty of warm, sunny areas for basking and showing off, and plenty of cover and hiding places. Sometimes we get some really interesting visitors around here. So last year I filmed a short on the same thing, but this is one of the coolest guys I find on my homestead occasionally. This is a rubber boa. Look at that. Those tiny scales give it kind of a rubbery sort of texture. They are constrictors. They are of the New World constrictors, but these are a more cold tolerant kind of snake. And if you look at the tail end, it's really blunt, and you see what he's doing? He's hiding his head and presenting us with his tail. They use that as a decoy so that their predators and their enemies will attack the tail instead of the head. They'll even move it in a way where it looks like the head. That is so cool. That is so cool. Beautiful. Beautiful. You are simply stunning, buddy. Okay. Let's get back to what you were doing. The roads out here are absolutely brutal on vehicles. Between the bumps and the rocks, ice and snow, mud and dust, the suspension components definitely get pushed hard and wear out pretty fast. I found myself having to rebuild the front end suspension of my truck, and gave me some time to think about if you're considering going in an off-grid lifestyle, the kind of vehicle you might be wanting to look at. Ford Ranger is just not a Ford Ranger unless some portion of it is held on with 550 cord or something. So I spent a whole lot of money this spring replacing all the front end suspension components in my little truck. I did the upper control arms, I did the lower ball joints, I did the hub assemblies, I did the steering rod ends and the sway bars, so it feels like a completely different vehicle. I think it's pretty critical if you're going to be wanting to live off grid full time and be as self-sufficient as possible, to have a vehicle that you have like some confidence in and some kind of ability to fix these issues as they come up. Not every vehicle is as easy to work on as kind of these older ones, and I really think like the late 90s, early 2000s is kind of the most recent end of that range where a lot of the parts are still user serviceable to a high degree. But anyway, she's back on the road, and I'm feeling really good, and we're going to go to town at some point and get an alignment done on it, and then I'll start saving my pennies up for some new tires. That's another critical thing that you have to have in good shape. What you think, Maidu?
My gardening efforts yield more and more every year, and this spring we were able to feed ourselves quite a bit from the garden beds. Fresh herbs, cultivated and wild greens, and smoked fish with a bit of rice make a healthy and satisfying meal and became one of Grace's favorites for breakfast. Actually, smoked trout has become one of our favorites overall. Readily available and sustainable, not to mention fun to catch, they've been a really viable source of animal protein for us. Out here in the high desert, we really only get about 15 inches, about 40 centimeters of precipitation annually. The majority of that falls in the form of snow in the wintertime, so conservation, the precious bit of rain that we get, is paramount. One of the more successful methods I have found to conserve water is using plastic seed and feed bags as mulch, otherwise being thrown away. You may notice a lot of sheeting in and around my garden, and it's not just because I'm lazy and kind of a slob, but it's also there to help shade the soil and prevent evaporation loss from the really intense sun that we get. Now I'm about to prepare a row here, and the first thing I'm going to do is just make a couple cuts in this in the shape that I'm after. In this case, because it's a row, I'm after a hot dog shape, not a hamburger shape. I like doing my plastic sheeting mulching in rows, and I prep the bed with compost and commercial bed filler. By burying one edge and working the soil in the middle, you create a fast draining row covered from the sun, allowing my crops to utilize every bit of water that I provide, or hopefully nature provides. Now that I have the row mulched, I create an opening with a knife and using a couple twigs to hold open a spot where I'm going to plant my crops, in this case some yellow onions. I've had a lot of success using onions, cabbage, garlics, and leeks using this method. The plastic barrier is also fantastic for controlling weeds that otherwise would using up any of the available water, and all that water is precious. Early in the springtime, I've had a lot of success using half soda bottles as a cheap and effective, is it cloche? I'm going to say cloche, to protect my plants from some of the surprise frost that we can experience well into June. Not only do they provide some protection against frost, but they also retain moisture and keep out pests. I find that a lot of man-made barriers are more effective at keeping pests out than natural barriers, to a point. Once the summer kicks in, all bets are off. Everything in the land is brown and blonde, so the rodents are after anything green. In some of my rows, as in this small row of Swiss chard, I do both sheet mulching and the soda bottle cloches. Tell me about the mosquitoes.
They're eating me alive. I can only slap at them for so long. I have like a client-facing job, so I can't be slapping myself all the time. So I've just been like passively letting them eat me. Mosquitoes do love me, so we're gonna make a screen for the outside of this just to somewhat hinder them. It's not gonna be perfect.
It's not perfect, but it works really well. During the heavy winter snow, we lost a number of juniper trees. I've been really busy chopping them up into manageable pieces all over the property. These thinner branches that I've collected, I'll be using for my 3 sisters gardens that I'm planning on building. So the 3 sisters is this kind of symbiotic relationship between corn, beans, and squash that when grow together, their mutual attributes really help improve each other. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for the concept for this garden. I cleared a naturally low spot for my first bed. I'm aiming for something circular in shape, and I'm going to do a juniper branch wattle for the outsides. This handheld pick is great for breaking up the soil. I dug a pit for these circular beds about 3 feet deep, and I filled the bottom with rotting wood and organic matter to act as a hugelkultur bed and a reserve for moisture in the summer months. I also mixed in a healthy amount of biochar and compost to help kickstart the decomposition process. As I started to backfill, I placed stakes for the garden's perimeter and 3 tall posts that'll act as trellises for beans or peas. For backfill, I used native soil, a bit of compost, and a bit of commercial raised bed soil. My goal was for a fast draining top layer with a deep layer of organic matter to retain moisture. I want to show you something kind of gross, but it will make you a little bit more of an informed user of the outdoors.
So I know it's a bit on the gross side, but that right there is a tick, and I'm not having an easy time getting the camera to focus on exactly what he's doing, but as you can see, all of the tick's appendages are kind of spread out, and what they do is they wait on the ends of vegetation like this, and they wait for some kind of warm-blooded creature to walk by, like my flippin' dog, and then they'll latch onto it. Let's see what happens. Look at that. And what ticks generally do is they generally climb up and they find someplace nice and soft to start their feeding. Ugh, gross. All right, I'm gonna go take care of this fella here.
As the weather warms, Grace and I really enjoy heading down to the local river to rinse off and enjoy the cool, clear water. We're very fortunate that there are a number of public accesses to the rivers in our area, and they're a great way to cool off with the rising temperature as summer approaches. When we can't visit the river, a little tradition that we have here at Easy Acres Homestead is our little evening patrols. Often the whole crew, my healer dog Maidu and my snowshoe cat Mr. Monster, will all come along. Sometimes if we're lucky we'll get a chance to see some of the wildlife on our little walks, but I really especially enjoy seeing the wildflowers. Each stage of spring brings us a new cast of blossoms up here. The delicate and very temporary nature of the high desert wildflowers makes them sacred and kind of magical to me. Traveling higher in elevation in search of huckleberries, Maidu and I found this huge meadow of daisies. I'd love to try to establish some of these at my homestead. If you're still watching, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for sticking with me. I know there are some delays in getting this video out, but I wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support. It means a world to me that I get to share this lifestyle with y'all. No sponsors, no shills, sales, or affiliates, none of that. And I hope I have an audience that appreciates off-grid content that's free of that. A subscription from you is free, and it really does mean the world to me. Thank you. We definitely have so much more to come. The summer is setting in, and Grace and I have some big plans for the future. But until then, thank you again for watching. Take care, be well, and be easy. So funny, Monster's back there digging too. He's planting something else. He's not planting seeds.